Yeah, just welcome everybody. Sorry about the technical problems. Yeah, so we'll just keep people a couple more minutes and then we'll just do a quick round of introductions and then we'll get started. So I don't know, yeah, a couple more coming in. And remember, we're on webinar format, which means that you don't have access to a camera or to a microphone, but you can communicate with us in the chat or in the Q&A. So if you have a question or comment, we're a little late in starting, but we should still have a few minutes for questions or comments.
And for those who are not able to connect, well, we're gonna record the meeting, and you will be able to find it under the YouTube page of FNEC. And we have Cynthia Lapierre today with us. She worked at FNEC and she was working before with Lynn also. And I think you have a group, you two, like at.
Oops, I think we've lost Sarah. She's got a tricky internet connection today. Yes, I think we seem to have lost her. I don't know, Cynthia, if you just want to say a couple of words of welcome, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, so good everyone. I'm Cynthia. I work at FNEC as a student success counselor. But before working at FNEC, I was at Cattery School for 2 years, where I worked a lot with Miss Lynn Jacobs and learned a lot from her, I guess, for tutelage or guidance. Lynn has always been really important for me at Cattery School, but also now still. What Sarah was gonna say is we still meet about, I think it's every 6 weeks we meet with the attachment group that's run through some people at Step by Step. So that's the thing with attachment, you have to keep connected. So and it's the first time I'm here as like a host, I guess, but every time I came, I was like, I can see you. I want to say hi.
Lynn, do you want to just say a few words of introduction to yourself in case we have some people here who have not yet attended a session? Oh, you need to unmute your microphone.
Just because my husband pops his head in every now and then, and I have to, have to mute because he works at home, so he's just down the hall. Okay, so I'm Lynn Jacobs. I'm from Kahnawake, and I work at elementary school, the English sector of Kahnawake. So it's Cattery School, and I work in a room called the Scanagoa room, which is Big Piece. I've been working at Cattery School for, I would say, I think I'm in my 31st year now. So I've been there for a while, holding different jobs in different roles in there that, given me a wealth of experience. But the job that I get the most fulfillment with is the Scanagoa room, which means big piece. And so I was invited to be a part of this panel to, I guess, offer my expertise in wherever I can from a cultural perspective or the work that I do at Cattery School. And I'm also a certified yoga kids teacher. So I teach yoga also with the children at Cattery School.
Well, thank you so much, Lynn. It's lovely to have you here with us. I always appreciate your input. Sarah, you're back.
Yes, I will need Lynn breathing exercise, yoga exercise to relax. My internet is unstable today, but it's an honor to be here. I'm working for FNEC. I'm a language and culture counselor there. So I'll try to bring the First Nation perspective as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. And my name is Eva DeGostini, and I'm a school psychologist. I've been in the field for a long, long time. I have had the honor of working with some Indigenous communities across Canada, Northern Saskatchewan and Yukon. And of course, work right now with the English school boards, helping them to understand and work with their children who have behavior problems. And I will be sharing with you today the fourth session on understanding our children from a developmental perspective using the paradigm of Dr. Gordon Neufeld, and also our neuroscience and our understanding of trauma and all sorts of other things as well that come in and help us to really understand our children. So today is part 2 of the topic being attachment. Last time, and for those of you that maybe were not able to attend the last time, these recordings are all available on the FNEC YouTube channel. So last week we talked about attachment and the caring and caring for our children and how we can get them into the relationship with us so that they know that we will be there for them. So I'm just going to share my screen and then get started on the second part of this um, of this presentation on attachment, because it is about staying in the lead. Now I just need to, here we go. Okay, good. So especially when we're teaching, whether we're teaching our little ones, our little 4-year-olds, or whether we're teaching older children, we have two parts to our relationship with them and their relationship with us. And on this particular session, we're going to focus in on staying, what we call staying in the lead, being the guide, because we know that if we can't have children's attention, if they won't listen to us, we can't, get them to do the things that we know are important for them to do. And again, just so that we are well understand that children grow and develop spontaneously, naturally, it happens. We don't have to push it, but they need certain things from us. We are like the sunshine, or like the fertilizer of the soil. We are what is that the child can grow in. So what do they actually need from us? Well, they need us to care deeply for them, and that's what we talked about in our session in session 3, is we talked about the caring part of attachment. But they also need us to be willing to take charge of them, to be their guide, and that means that sometimes they're not going to be happy with us. And many times when people talk about using an attachment-based approach, they feel very guilty, because they say, but sometimes I have to make my children do things they don't like. Am I being attachment-based? Of course you are. And we're going to unpack that particular perspective of what the attachment relationship is about during this session. And we're also going to then talk about what happens when the attachment relationship, and especially this be taking charge, kind of gets turned around, and you'll see how that works in a minute. So again, just to remind us that attachment is a whole set of instincts. We have about 35 attachment instincts, and what they do is they arrange in a hierarchical manner, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment, so that it just allows us to take care of children. When children are attached to us, then when the instincts to attach are there and they're able to attach to us, we provide their comfort and rest, a place of retreat. And as we know, when children are resting, that is when they are growing. And so what we want to do is to create those right conditions so that children will be able to grow. We don't have to do very much to make them into lovely, lovely human beings. We just have to create the right conditions, and it will come naturally. It's going to take a long time, but because it's not something that happens overnight, but when it comes, it happens spontaneously, it's wonderful, and it's something that stays with the person, and they're not just performing, that is who they are. When we are, attachment allows us to be the compass point for children. They naturally look to us and want to know what to do, and this allows us to transmit our culture. How does it work? Well, that hierarchy is really important, because it's really about giving and receiving care. And a little bit later today, we're going to talk about the children who have a hard time receiving our care. And I'm going to explain to you why some children get into that mode where it's hard for them to let us take care of them. But as teachers, as instructors, as people who work with young children, if a child won't let you take care of them, you aren't even at square one. And so we're going to look a little bit why some children have a hard time letting us take care of them. So there are these instincts, the dependent instinct, which is the one that allows us to lean on someone, and the alpha instinct, which allows us and brings us to guiding somebody. And then there are drives, a seeking drive and a providing drive. And so in other words, what's happening here is that we are wired to make this happen. These alpha instincts are wired into our brain. You don't have to learn them. They are there, and they're there even with 2 and 3-year-olds. They're there with 15-year-olds. They're there with everyone, older, younger person. We all have these drives, but they manifest themselves in slightly different ways as we grow and develop. So of course, if you are if you with your instincts to depend, you are moved to seek, to get your bearings, to seek assistance, to look up to belong, to follow, to look for guidance. Okay, you have your arms outstretched and you basically are saying, I want to be helped. Please help me. Right? And we have the other instincts, which are the providing instincts, and which are our instincts to guide. Dr. Neufeld calls these the alpha instincts. And they are basically, now we are going to help this person. So we're going to orient and inform, protect and defend, guide and direct, to look out for, to possess, to lead and to guide. And so we just naturally do that. It comes from us. What's interesting is that even in adult relationships, strong attachments are based on these two instincts, but they're based on these two instincts taking their turns, right? Because I mean, some of you might say, well, with my friend, we're equal, or with my spouse, we're equal. And we are. And there's many times when we are going to do things in a way that is egalitarian, your choice, my choice, we're going to debate about it, we're going to come to an answer. But a really good relationship, in a really good relationship, and some of you know that you have these kinds of relationships, is when you need help and you call your friend and you say, "It's not going well today." And they immediately say, so now they move into the alpha position, "What can I do to help? How can I help you?" Right? And you basically say this, that, and the other thing, and then they help you, and it works out really well. Well, the other side of it, and some of you might have had relationships like this where you were always helping. No, sorry, where the other person was always, yeah, where the other person would never let you take care of them, right? Because and sometimes we think we're always the ones that are helping. A good relationship is one where these things go back and forth. I take care of you when you need me, you take care of me when I need you. And so it's complementary, and that makes a really strong relationship. Of course, with children, we want them, for the most part, to be in the seeking mode. And when you have children that are easy to teach, they have it's easy for them to ask for help. And when they ask for help, we automatically, our alpha instincts become activated. And again, some of you, we'll look at this a bit later, but some of when your child says, oh, please, please help me, really hard for us to resist helping. Sometimes we know we're supposed to let them do it on their own, but it just activates those alpha instincts. And so there are most of the children in your care, especially when you're taking care of the little ones, it's easy for you to want to take care of them because it's just natural there. And when you are in this caring alpha role, there's three basic things that happen. First of all, you're moved to take the leader role. You just step into the role, you take charge of the situation, you act as if you are the one who knows. And many of us, when you first became a teacher, that's what you had to do. Some of you said, how am I going to do this? How am I going to walk into a classroom? But I bet even in your first year of teaching, when you walked into that classroom, there was a part of you that just clicked in and said, you know what, I'm the teacher. I'm the one leading here. I've got some ideas. I know what it is I want to do with you guys. And so you just take that role naturally. Um, Sometimes when, well, like for today, our Valerie is not able to be here with us today, but Cynthia stepped right into that leadership role. She said, okay, I'll help. I'll take over. I'll do what needs to be done. Perfect. Those are your alpha instincts kicking in, and just basically, and I know that if things weren't going well, you would give me some suggestions of what we could do so that it could go better. And that's what we mean about the leadership role. Now, sometimes we know that the person who's the leader can be kind of bossy and can kind of want to take over and kind of want to tell everyone what to do. And sometimes they can actually lord it over other people. So the beauty about our alpha instincts is that they come with two other sets of instincts that kind of keep that keep it under control or moderate it. So as soon as you get into your alpha instincts, you also start to feel a sense of responsibility. And again, for any of you, when you had children, and even those of you, like some of you I know were teachers for years and years, you've taken care of classes of 20, 30 children, you've done a marvelous job, you're an expert taking care of children, but oh my goodness, when your baby was born, so you were willing to take care of that baby, but then you started to feel that sense of responsibility. Oh my goodness, am I going to be able to do everything to make it work? You're obviously willing to make sacrifices, but you also feel guilty. I didn't do everything I could. Why is my baby cried too long? And this is one of the things, one of the challenges that teachers have all the time. And they say to me, but Eva, I want to do everything right for all of my children, but I've got 15 kids in the class. I can't take care of all of them in the way they need to be taken care of, or 20 kids or 25 kids. Oh, I wasn't in a good mood today, so I didn't do the right thing. That is part of your alpha instincts, and that keeps you from being a mean person. That keeps you soft. That keeps you always thinking about, how you can do things better. Now, it's hard because it comes with a feeling of guilt. But when you are an alpha, you are always going to be guilty. There's nothing you can do about it. You've just got to get used to it and come to terms with it and come alongside it. But also recognize that if you can feel guilty, it will keep you soft enough so that you can become an effective leader. Of course, when you are in the alpha position, you care about, you're concerned. It's not hard to bear the burdens of, to meet the needs of, to provide what is needed. Again, I remember before I had children, I thought, oh my goodness, what if they get sick? What if they make some kind of a mess? Am I ever going to be able to clean it up? Well, when you do what you have to do, you're able to do it. You might not like it, but somehow you're able to do way more than you ever thought. Those are the three big pieces of this caring alpha: being the leader, being willing to be the leader, taking that responsibility, but also feeling a bit guilty, and caring deeply. So when those three pieces are there, you have a very good leader, a very good alpha. And so this is just it. These things kick in and you just automatically step into that role. And the interesting thing as well, and this is sometimes some of you have noticed this, is that you're sitting in a room, you're waiting for a meeting to start. And let's say the person who's supposed to run the meeting, this was in the olden days when we could all gather in a room, the person who was supposed to start the meeting, is a bit late. It's very interesting because as soon as we're all sitting there kind of looking around, what are we supposed to do to help? Well, someone in the room, their alpha instincts will kick in. And so one person is going to say, you know what, everybody, let's just go have a cup of coffee. When people look to us to need help, we naturally step into that. And by the way, those of you that are in education, this is who you are by definition. You are alphas. You are going to be the one in a group that's going to say, you know what, everybody, let's go get a cup of coffee. I'm sure she'll be here in a moment. You have very, very strong alpha instincts. I always say, your alpha instincts are so strong that you not only are willing to take care of your own children, but you're willing to take care of other people's children. That is a very special group of people who are really willing and moved. And thank goodness we have them. Thank goodness we have people who have these strong alpha caring instincts. So some of the characteristics. So they're meant to match up with their corresponding societal roles. So in other words, the parent is supposed to be the alpha, the child is supposed to be the seeker. The teacher is supposed to be the giver, the guide, the student is supposed to be the receiver. The therapist is supposed to be the guide, the client is supposed to be looking for help, doctor, patient, host and guest, older and younger sibling. Okay, these are natural roles, and when everything is going well with our alpha instincts, we kind of understand where we fit into the social order, and we're able to accept the rules that come with that. And sometimes, I mean, some of you maybe be friends with the person who's the principal in your school, and we'll talk about this in a moment. But sometimes your friend has to say, I'm really sorry, but I'm the principal. Oh yeah, okay, yes, of course, you're the principal. You can make decisions. We kind of know how we fit in. And it's really important that people sort of honor these roles. The other thing about it is that they're meant to be fluid and responsive to the situation. So we're meant to move between dependent and alpha, depending on what the situation is. So for example, you're at somebody's house, the host starts to feel ill. It's perfectly normal for the guest to say, no, it's okay, I'll go get the coffee, just sit for a minute, it'll be, and so we step into the alpha role. But as soon as the host starts to feel better, and they say, no, I want to do it now, I'm okay, then we go back into the guest role, right? It's supposed to be depending on what the needs are of the situation, right? And many of us have found that scenario where we take that role. Or again, it depends on the relationship. As I say, if your friend is the principal, but as friends, you make joint decisions. But as a principal, you know she has the last word, and you don't fight her on it. And you might not agree with her, but you know that in her role as the principal, your job is to be more of a listener and to understand that she has she has the decision making power. So it's meant to move back and forth. And it was the posture of one should typically call forth the complementary set of attachment instincts in the other. So this is very typical of teachers. And again, if I had the time, again, if I had 3 hours or 4 hours to present this, I could show you some videos, but all of you can probably imagine this in your own mind. I think of teachers, they're out in the hallway, they're greeting the children, they're being very friendly. This is the caring aspect of their role. The children come into the classroom, they're, chatting and doing this and doing that, and the teachers being, again, very helpful, very caring. And then all of a sudden, it could be that the bell rings, or it could be that you just decide it's the time now. And so what do? Now you move into the leading position, the alpha position. What do? You walk to the front of the room. Usually you pull yourself up, you know it's you had you had your kind, caring voice, but now you use a little bit of a commanding voice. You say, children, right? And that's the nonverbal tonal cue. I've now moved from friendly teacher to teaching teacher to guiding teacher. And most of your students will go, oh, okay. And they sit back, and now they realize that you've gotten into this more leadership sort of role, and they look to us and they follow us. The other way, of course, is that if, let's say, we've given a child responsibility, and again, as alphas, we can give our children responsibility. We can let them do things. We can let them be in charge of something, right? I mean, but it's because we've chosen that. But let's say we gave the child a responsibility and they really can't do it. Now, sometimes, and of course, again, it's so interesting because this nonverbal stuff, kids figure it out. They go, I can't do it. And they're expecting our alpha instincts to kick in and for us to take over. Now, if you're a wise alpha, you know the difference between a child who's kind of could do it but needs a little push, or a child where they just really can't today. They just really can't. And again, as a wise alpha, you kind of instinctively know the difference, and you say, you know what, honey, I'll help you. So it's one brings out the other in us, and it's supposed to, as I say, be very fluid and work really naturally. We call this right relationship. This means that the children ultimately are in that seeking position, we're in the guiding position, and everybody kind of knows how it all works out. And again, with the children who are easy to teach, who are easy to guide, you see this and it works beautifully. Now, what are the conditions? Well, children do need to feel very safe in that dependent mode. And they have to trust that the adults able to provide and keep them safe. So they have to have trust in us. And that trust comes by the way in which we behave. And it's a combination of kindness and firmness. And I know for myself, this was something that I often struggled with because I thought if I was firm, that would, that the child would be upset with me, because now when you're firm, when you say no to a child, no, you have to do this right now. You need to come in and recess is over. You have to sit down to have supper. They aren't going to be necessarily happy with us. But what we have to understand is that the ability to say no, to set boundaries, actually makes children feel safe, because they want to know that someone actually is in charge. One of the other big mistakes we've made in terms of our parenting style, but even our style at schools, we do too much explaining. We talk and we talk and we talk and talk because we want the children to behave for us because they understand. But sometimes it's just, and I remember, boy, if anyone ever told me that I would say this when I was a young parent, but I'm saying it now as a much older person. It's a little bit along the lines of, well, because I said so. But I know that seems mean, and you don't always have to say because I said so, absolutely. But once in a while, children actually need to know that there is someone who's going to make the final decision. And they don't like it, but many children, they did a research with teenagers, 19-year-olds, and they asked 19-year-olds, what are you grateful that your parents did? 19-year-old said, I was grateful that my parents gave me limits. Now, if any of you are raising a 14-year-old, you know that at 14-year-olds, when you say, no, honey, you're not going to that party, I'm not letting you go to that party. There's no adults there. You cannot go. Your 14-year-old is not going to turn to you. See, and I see Sarah smiling. Is not going to turn to you and say, Mommy, thank you so much for giving me a limit. 5 years later, they're going to say, thank you for giving me a limit. But what's fascinating, because your 14-year-old probably also said to you, besides the fact that they hate you and you're the worst parent in the world and you're never going to have grandchildren because blah, 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 blah. And everybody else's parents let them do that. And they said to 19-year-olds, what do you wish your parents had done? And the children of the parents who let them do whatever they wanted to do said, I wish my parents had given me more limits because I didn't always know what was right for me. This is the crux of raising children, knowing sometimes what they need and not what they're asking for. So they have to lean on us, because if they can't lean on us, then they're going to find they can't trust that we're going to take care of them. They're going to find somebody else. Some of our children have turned to other peers, to their peers. Some of them have turned to gangs. Some of them have turned to cults. Again, I mean, that's extreme, but sometimes when there aren't the caring individuals either in their home or possibly in the school, they look to somebody else to take care of them. A lot of these children start taking care of themselves. And then when they start taking care of themselves, their alpha instincts become dominant and become stuck. And it makes it really hard to take care of these children. So instead of allowing adults to guide and help them, they actually start telling adults what to do. They become very bossy children. They can look very independent. They've got all these great ideas, but they're, and most of you know, because I know when I was a school psychologist, I had teachers telling me, you got to do something about this kid, Eva. He won't listen to me. And at first I used to get upset about that, but now I understand what the teacher was saying to me was, he won't let me teach him. She won't let me guide her, right? Because children have to accept, because we do know more than they do. Anyway, so it can be very confusing. So when they become stuck, when these instincts become stuck, it's called the alpha complex. Now, I don't usually like playing psychologist with people that I'm talking to, but I'm going to play psychologist here because I'm psychologizing, not a word that exists. I'm analyzing myself. See, alpha instincts can get stuck. They become the alpha complex. And when they're stuck, they start to become characteristic of the individual and not just a response to the circumstance. I truly believe that everyone in education has an alpha complex because, as I say, it's hard work taking care of other people's children. So you got to have these really strong alpha instincts. Other little signs that you might have an alpha complex. And by the way, people love those of us who have an alpha complex because we are the 20% of the world who run the world. Anybody needs a volunteer? If you've got an alpha complex, you can't even sit on your hand long enough, because when you have an alpha complex, you can be somewhat bossy. You have a rescuer helper syndrome. You're always out there to help other people. There's a certain amount of competitiveness. There is a certain amount of demanding personality, and actually you can even move into the bully syndrome. Um, but these are the people, when you are stuck in that, you want to be the one who's in control. You want to be the one in charge. And I know for myself, I've been called bossy before. People love me because all they have to do in a committee is ask for, and if I've gone to a committee meeting and I promise myself I'm not going to volunteer, all the people in the committee have to do is just be quiet long enough. And the next thing I know, without any control over it, my hand has gone up. Okay, I'll do it. So if you've ever done, okay, I'll do it, you have a bit of an alpha complex. As I say, people love you. It's not the end of the world, but it is exhausting when you're always the one who rescues everyone else. One thing I've learned over time is to sometimes realize I have to leave space for somebody else, because otherwise I'm going to burn myself out. And the other thing too is that when they get stuck, they become intensified during times of stress and neediness. And again, I have a sister who has an alpha complex as well, and she can become quite unpleasant when things are not going well in her life, and she starts telling me exactly how I'm supposed to run my life and tells me things that, what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it. And I mean, I love my sister dearly, but really, you don't need to tell me how to run my life. It took me years to finally realize that the more she got like that, the worse things were in her life. Now, when she gets like that, I don't react to how she speaks. I wait for till she takes a breath, and then I say, "Is everything going okay?" And luckily, occasionally because if she just called me and said, "Eva, things aren't going well," it would be so much easier for me to be nice to her. So these are the things about the alpha complex, and some of our kids are stuck in an alpha complex. These kids are really challenging to teach and to guide. They don't like anybody telling them what to do because they want it, because they think they should be the one in charge. They're not very endearing. They tend to alienate the adults who are responsible for them. They always want to have the last word. They always want to say something to top what you have to say. Some of them just always want to be smarter than you. They always, you can't, and little 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds will say, "You can't tell me what to do. You're not my mummy." The only trouble is a truly alpha complex kid won't even listen to their mummy. They just don't listen to anybody because they think they have to protect themselves. They seem very independent. Oh my goodness. And my daughter, the apple does not fall from far from the tree. My daughter has an alpha complex as well. And I remember her crying one time. Actually, it was her 30th birthday. And unfortunately, none of her friends could come. Her birthday was always in the summer, so it made it harder for people to come in. And she said to me, Mom, everybody thinks I'm so independent. Everybody thinks I don't really need anybody else because I'm just so capable. She said, I really needed my friends right now, but they just didn't understand it, right? And so so because she's so independent, people didn't think they had to take care of her. Oh, it's okay if I don't go to her birthday party, other people will go. Whereas other people, I don't know if the rest of you know that sometimes somebody invites you and you go, I better go because nobody else is going to go, right? But she didn't. So when you're like that, the adults don't realize that you actually need more help than you do. And when you are in an alpha mode, it's hard to get rest. They always seem to want more. More than what we can give, and that turns us off as well, makes us feel. And when we try and give them sanctions or consequences, it doesn't work very well. They always have well, that wasn't fair, and you shouldn't have done that, and last time you said this, and they always have an argument for us why what we're doing isn't right. And so it's really hard to guide these kids. Now, why do some children get like that? Well, it actually makes a lot of sense. And there's two big, big, big reasons why some children need to feel that they have to take care of themselves. One is called alpha by default. The other one is alpha by defense. The alpha by default actually happens when we don't understand the two parts of alpha, when we don't understand that we have to love our children, but we also have to give them boundaries. And so that happens when the adults don't assume that alpha posture or convey an alpha presence. Now, it can be for many different reasons. It can be for, and I'll show you in a moment, some of the things that we do in our society that actually make children feel like we're not strong enough to take care of them. But there are also some children who live in a home where it does not feel safe to depend. The people that are taking care of them just don't have the resources to take care of them and sometimes can be quite mean to them. And so obviously that's going to cause problems. Now, when we do alpha by default, sometimes it can be because parents are reacting to their own backgrounds. I remember a lovely, lovely young man, very caring person, worked as a behavior technician. With very, very difficult adolescence. So I mean, clearly a man with a very soft, caring heart. And he had two little boys. He had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. And he said to me, "Oh no, in my house, I give my boys consequences, but I give my boys timeouts, but they can give me a timeout too." Well, anybody who's in education knows that if a child can give an adult a timeout, there's trouble here, right? Because who's the alpha? If the child can give the adult a timeout, now the child is in the alpha position, right? And I was curious. I said, how did this come about? He says, well, my parents were so strict and so mean to me. I don't want to be like that with my children. But what we have to understand about alpha is that it it takes its place when the parent says, oh, well, okay, I don't want to be, I'm not going to be very firm with my children. Poof, the children go into alpha role. So that's not very helpful to children. It can be because we don't actually, we're afraid. We're afraid, oh my goodness, I don't want to be a mean parent. And so we kind of take that sort of back role. We're egalitarian parents. I tell you, there's some things that I find really difficult to listen to, either in terms of parenting or even in terms of the classroom. All the time on all the TV shows, the parents call their child buddy. Your child's not your buddy. Your child is your child. In the French sector, and I don't mean to be critical here, and it's just a habit that people have, but they say les amis, friends. These children are not your friends. You're the teacher. Need to be calling them children. It's not that you can't be friendly, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just that it kind of gives the child the message that we're equals. Well, you can't be, all of a sudden they pop into that alpha role. Or when you say, well, I'm going to wait until my child needs something and then I'll give them what they need. Or I'm going to let them show me, what they need. And so all of a sudden now the child is having, honey, what would you like to eat? And when do you want to go to sleep? Oh, are you tired right now? And again, it's not that we can't ask our child, what would you like to eat or whatever, but can you see how even the tone of voice, are you hungry, sweetie? Do you need, are you okay? We are in the dependent mode, begging for the child to tell us what to do. And the child now has to be the decider. And the thing about alpha is you can get stuck in alpha pretty easily because it's kind of the safest place to go. So it's kind of habits that we need to watch for ourselves with our children. Again, it doesn't mean you can't kneel down to a child and say, honey, what's wrong? But we have to just be careful not to do it all the time. We have a somewhat of a blindness in our society about how important it is. But and again, I'll ask Lynn and Sarah a bit later to make a comment on this, because I think I want to get through the material first. But I think in some cultures, and certainly I believe in many of your cultures, you have words for things like, well, grandmother, right, grandfather, older person is called grandmother or grandfather as an honorific title. Not if I'm right there. Aunts and uncles. In Hungarian, and I don't know if this is true in your languages, but in Hungarian, there's a special word for older brother that is different than younger brother. Right? See the hierarchy? And so on. So some societies have hierarchies built into them, and just the word elder builds a beautiful hierarchy in. And I think it's very important that when we don't have culture to guide us, that we need to be aware of the fact that there needs to be hierarchy. Now, some parents, of course, are either sick or have things wrong with them and they just can't step into the role. Sometimes a single parent will look. I remember being at a parent child meeting one time when the mother said, oh, he's my buddy, he's my friend, he takes care of me, which sounded very lovely, but it's like the poor kid's eyes were like this. I'm supposed to take care of my mother? And we know that some kids step into that role and they look like they can do it, but it's exhausting for them. And so as parents and as adults, we need to be careful to give children the message, well, we've got an answer. We know what to do. Now, with the children who are alpha by defense, it doesn't feel safe to depend. They've either had too much separation, they don't feel that they're taken care of because the adults just aren't able to do it, or they have a lot of sensitivities where they're just overwhelmed, where life is going too fast. Our children on the autism spectrum, and again, we've had a number of people mention that they have children or grandchildren on the autism spectrum. Most autistic children are alpha children because we can't understand how difficult their world is. So they become very alpha. They tell us what to do, but we understand why they're doing it because we understand it's because of their autism. Or a child who's experienced too many alarming situations or circumstances. For my own daughter, I know besides my own very mild parenting, which I didn't understand, but I know for my daughter, a key thing for her was when her grandparents lived in this great big house on a hill. It looked like a castle, and unfortunately, someone broke into it. And at that moment, she thought, my goodness, if that house and those people can't keep us safe, I'm going to have to keep myself safe. And from that moment, she switched into being a very bossy little girl. Sometimes children, of course, are abused or exploited. Um, we have parents who sometimes take everything away from children, where children no longer feel it's safe to depend on them, or when a child is being bullied and they can become quite alpha. So these are the ways in which children are pushed into that alpha position. And once they are, it's a really difficult position to turn around. They are predisposed to anxiety, even though we don't usually see it. These children don't often, my daughter did not often talk about her anxiety, but she has told me later on that she had a lot of alarm in her, because when you can't allow yourself to depend on an adult to be safe, then you've got to depend on yourself. But when you're a kid, you can't always take care of yourself. So there's a high state of alarm in there, but sometimes they don't even know that they're alarmed. And the more they attempt to control, the more they become anxious, because even we as adults know it's, you can't control a world out of control, but these kids, it's really hard. But their default position is to control more. And again, like with my sister and often with my daughter, I know things are not going well when they start to get bossy, because then I know the alarm is going up, and I have to, instead of dealing with the bossiness, I have to come alongside the alarm. They can be very aggressive because they're very frustrated. And again, this is very awkward, because you go to help and they don't want to be helped. And then they get more frustrated because nobody's taking care of me. It's kind of like a little bit like my Calvin, and I'll bring that up at our thing. Calvin, little cartoon that I often show to people, where Calvin says, "I hate everybody, get away from me." And then he's walking away, and then he says, "Nobody gets my hints to smother me with affection." Well, it's hard to smother a kid with affection when they say, "I don't need you. You're stupid. Why are you always telling me what to do?" Like, it's really hard. And of course, when they get frustrated, then they want to attack, and then they really need to be having their tears, but they can't find their tears because it makes them feel too vulnerable. They're caught in a horrible vicious circle, and they can become very oppositional. I'm the one who knows what to do. You can't tell me what to do. They always try and one up you. They always try and be better than you. And sometimes we go to help them and say, "I don't need your help." And they desperately need our help, but they won't let us help them. And then their alarm and their frustration goes up. So they get stuck in this vicious circle. But these kids often look very competent. And that's why it can be really tricky. Hard to manage, but competent. So you end up in this kind of, they try and displace us. They try and be the one that's in control, and they're very demanding. And they always, like, they command attention, and they trump the hugs, and they demand to be held, and they insist on being heard. And it's just like, it's never ending. It's exhausting. And because they're basically saying, "I'll take care of myself." And we go to help them, and they won't let us help them. And then sometimes we feel like we just want to tell them what to do, and we end up in this horrible power struggle. But the power struggle isn't because we're mean people. It's because we know from our natural alpha instincts, if they won't let me help them and guide them, I cannot teach them. And so, a little bit, one of the other sessions, we'll talk a little bit about how to manage this. It's kind of, I don't know if any of you ever felt it, but I'm sure you've thought it once in a while with one child or another, which is basically, "Oh, just do what I say," but you can't do it. But that's your alpha instincts. That's not because you're a mean person. It's because if I can't get them. So we're going to talk again in one of the other sessions of how to get that child into that position. But we just need to understand it. So in the caring alpha role, I'm going to talk more generally right now, but specifically with these children, we need to do all of these things, but even more carefully. So we take the caring alpha role. First of all, we need to convey a strong alpha presence. And again, most of you do this. If I had a teacher education school where I was training people, first of all, I would just want to see, I would say, "Okay, show me how you're going to walk into the classroom." And if, and I would need to see you pull your shoulders back, pull yourself up, and walk into the classroom. That's called an alpha presence. If you didn't know how to do that, then I would want to train you how to do that. And if after training you couldn't do that, I'd say, "I'm sorry, but you're not meant to be a teacher." Be a nurse, be a social worker, be a psychologist. Teaching isn't going to work for you very well, because you've got to be able to look like you know what you're doing. Give the message. It's okay. I'm your answer. And I mean, my goodness, didn't COVID ever show us how to do that? We didn't know what we were doing. None of us knew what we were doing. But all of you guys stepped up and said, "We're going to figure it out. It's okay." And you acted confident. You've got to give the child the idea you can and will take care of them. We'll figure something out. Sadly, again, we sometimes share too much with our children. It's okay to think it in your head. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this child. I am at the end of my rope. I have no idea what to do. But we shouldn't be telling children that because they need to keep us hearing. And, some of us have to train ourselves to say something in front of a child who's like driving us crazy and we really don't know what to do. You know what, honey? And you might even have to say, I'm not sure what to do here, but you know what? We're going to figure something out. And that's where you call Cynthia, or that's where you call Lynn, or that's where you call Sarah and say, help me figure something out because I don't know what else to do. But we've got to give children that message. We do, not just me, but we as a group know what to do. And then we need to anticipate and prevent. Figure out, where does this child get into trouble? How can I make it easier for them? I noticed that you always have a hard time with your yogurt. You know what? Let me know in the morning you have yogurt and I'll come to your desk the first and I'll open up your yogurt. Okay, anticipate, prevent, be the one. And this, for a child who's an alpha child, sometimes just offering to help can really make them feel more comfortable with us. And sometimes the inevitable. I know this is going to upset you. It's okay. I can handle your upset. I can handle your upset. Again, in my teacher education school, you all need to take drama classes. You all need to look like you're calm when you're paddling like mad underneath. And most of you would pass with flying colors. I have huge, huge admiration for how you guys can handle all this crazy stuff that's going on and still look calm. When you don't know what to do, act confident and don't talk about your concerns in front of the child. And be careful when we are talking to children. Don't act as if you need to be taking care of them. I remember one teacher, and I think she had a lot of alpha kids. It was a class of children with behavior problems. And she said, but how about if I just say to them, honey, when you do that, it really makes me feel sad. Oh, no, 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 no. You can't say that to a child. They should not be responsible for how you are feeling. They should not be responsible for you taking care of you, right? It's okay once in a while if you have a child once in a while to take care of. Sometimes if you have a good relationship with your classroom, you can say that, I'm not feeling very well today, children. I need you to behave, right? Sometimes they can do that. But if any of you have, but that only works if you have a class full of children who are able to flip back into the dependent mode when you get stronger again, right? And so it's really important that we don't make children feel responsible for our feelings as adults. When we're in that alpha role, make it safe and easy to depend. Invite the dependence rather than resisting it. And I know with our 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds, there's that fine line between, well, if I always go and help them, they're never going to want to do it for themselves. But if we remember back to what children are wired to do, they are wired through their emergence to do it myself. And sometimes, often with some children, when we do offer, they'll say, no, I can do it myself. We actually need to trust in the desire to become independent. And some children just need us, especially if they're not getting a lot of help at home. And remember, some of your children, 4 and 5-year-olds, are coming from homes in which there are 2 other babies. You know, they can't ask for help at home because mommy and daddy are busy with the other 2 babies. But maybe when they come to school, they need us to take care of them a little bit more. But if we take care of them, the emergence will come out. We need to take that lead in taking care of them. And yes, you can depend on me. I will help you when you need it. And we have to be careful because sometimes it's tempting to keep taking things away from kids to get them to behave. But you know what? At some point, why would you want to depend on somebody that takes away what you like the most? The behavioral systems, especially the ones where there's consequences of taking things away from children, they didn't understand they were messing with attachment. It doesn't mean to say that sometimes you do have to take something away from a child. A child has got something pointy in their hand and they're about to hit another child. Absolutely, we have to take it away, but not because we're trying to change their behavior, but because what we're doing is right. And remember, the other children are also watching and noting how you're responding to a specific child. If you have a very alpha child who never wants help from you and doesn't, you can't tell me what to do, and I don't need your help. But if you talk to the child beside them and say, it's okay, honey, to make a mistake. I'm here to help you. I don't mind if you make mistakes. The little alpha kid's little ears are going to be there saying, oh, it's okay to make a mistake. She doesn't get mad when I spill my water. She just gets a rag and we both clean it up. Oh, oh, they start to trust a little bit more. Or sometimes, of course, if we get really frustrated, my son was like this. My son, nobody would ever yell at my son. He was the sweetest little boy, great big eyes, and he would cry very easily. So nobody yelled at him ever. But he would come home heartbroken because the teacher had been what he thought was, and I'm not saying the teacher was, but in his mind, the teacher was being too firm or too harsh on another child. So we have to be careful as well because sometimes that one particular child might need a little extra, but it might be too much for the other children. So we have to be very careful. I'm not saying you do have to be firm, but firm and kind. Read the need and take the lead. So don't ask the questions, honey, what do you need? What's wrong? What's happening with you? If we ask children too many questions, they have to know what's right for them, and often they don't. How many of you have children that when they haven't slept well or when they're hungry, get really owly and growly, And I remember again in the olden days when I was raising children, I was trying to be very democratic, and I would say to my children, they'd be owly and growly. I'd say, "Oh, you know what? You need something to eat, honey. You're really hungry." "No, I'm not hungry." They were hungry. Then I finally realized, okay, I don't talk about them being hungry. I just give them a granola bar or whatever it is, right? If we ask children, often we want to know, well, why did you do that? What were you thinking? And again, it's not a bad thing when you have a strong relationship with a child, when the child is willing to talk to you, to ask those questions once in a while. But if we constantly are saying, well, what were you thinking? What was going on? What was happening? Then they start to think that they get be confused because sometimes it's about their emotions, not about their thinking. It's about what they're feeling. And it's hard for them, especially children who are frustrated because of attachment problems. It's hard for them to say, well, I came to school this morning really frustrated because my mother didn't get up and feed me breakfast, and I'm not sure that my mom is really in a good state right now to take care of me. That's where their frustration is coming from, is they're scared their mummy is not in good shape to take care of them or their daddy's not in good shape to take care of them. But they can't say that. So when another kid says something mean to them or says something what they think is mean, they whack the other kid. And then you say, well, what was happening here? Well, he said something mean. And then you go and you ask all the other kids, and the other kid didn't really say that much. And so the behavior isn't about what happened. It's about the emotional state the child came in. And we know about some of our children, they come to school very, very, very frustrated, but they can't talk about it because it hurts too much. So sometimes we just think in our head, oh, too much frustration. And again, I've talked to teachers and I've talked to people working in schools. They can tell when the kid comes off the school bus that they're already up to here with frustration. And what we have to do is basically take the lead. We read the cues. Okay, he's having a bad morning this morning. You know what? He needs to go see Miss Jacobs right away. And I'm sure, Lynn, you've had people like that. They just bring a kid right to you, and the kid said, "But I didn't do anything." No, the teacher just looks at you, and both of you go like this, okay, and you just step right in and you take care of that child. So you don't always talk about it. You just do what they have to do. And if that, and again, I know, Lynn, some of your kids, they just need you to deal with their emotions, help with their emotions, and you just lead them into it, and away you go. Read the need and take the lead, meet the needs and not the demands. So for example, a child is hungry and asks for a cookie. I want a cookie. Well, the next time you notice that they're hungry, feed the need, give them the food, but make it something that's good for them, because if they eat carrots, they're going to eat their supper. If they eat cookies, they won't. So we give them something, but we maybe cut the carrots into a special shape. We make it pleasant, right? We read their need. We don't always give them what they're asking for, but whatever we give them, we make it pleasant. No, you can't go out for recess, but you can stay with me. No, you can't play with that friend, because every time he plays with that friend, there's problems. But I've got another friend for you, right? So we make the alternative pleasant, even though at that time the child doesn't always like it. And we do need to stand our ground. Please, I promise I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. No, today you're staying in with me. And let's find something that you enjoy. But I promise I'll be good. Can I? No, right now you're coming with me, right? So don't let on that you're afraid of the upset. Sometimes you even need to say it. We'll talk about that in a moment in terms of how you can do that. But we just don't be afraid. Don't let on. Oh my goodness, he's going to have a tantrum now. Am I going to be able to handle it? And again, in a moment, I'll give you a sentence of how to deal with that. with around attachment provide more than what is pursued. Always trump the pursuit. The kid gives a hug, give a bigger hug. The kid gives a smile, give a bigger smile. The kid says, are you happy with me? I'm here today. Oh my goodness, honey, I was thinking about you. We always, as the adult, are the one that gives just a little bit more, right? Again, with our alpha children, it's hard, but these are the kind of words that say to a child, oh, you have permission to exist in my presence, and I'm the provider. Now, sometimes we know that if we do something or say something, it's not going to go well. And again, it's so fascinating to me. Look, I'm a psychologist. Psychologists are providers. We get that children need help. I'm very sensitive to children's pain. I'm very sensitive to all the things that could hurt them. I'm more of a caring alpha than I am of a guiding alpha. I mean, I've got my guiding, so don't count me wrong. I have my guiding part, but I'm a little bit more towards the caring part. Teachers are more towards the guiding part. And I've learned, why do teachers know that? For two reasons. One, because by teaching, they know I can't teach a child who won't follow me. But even more importantly, teachers also instinctively know, if I let a kid do whatever they want in my class, I'm no longer the guide. And the other children will stop looking at me. They're very sensitive to their alpha role. But as you all know, you will run across a kid in your classroom, in your school, who no matter what you do, there's going to be an explosion. There's going to be a fit. So this is what I've sort of figured out, and I've talked to teachers about it, and they don't like it too much when I say it, but most of them kind of get what I'm talking about. Is how can you stay alpha? So sometimes you say, you know what, honey, right? I really have to go and help Billy. You're going to have to do this yourself. It's okay if you get upset with me. It's all right to be upset, but you're going to have to try it on your own. And there are some children that if we don't walk away, they'll never try on their own. But we give them permission to be unhappy. I remember when I was a teenager, there were people who said, I'm going to tell you to do something, and I don't want any pouting. Well, you know what? Pouting isn't the worst thing in the world. You need permission to pout, but I'm still not going to change my mind. Even you might need to say, and again, this is depending on the circumstance, but sometimes you need to say, you know what, this is going to upset you. I'm not letting you out for recess. Go ahead and have a tantrum. This is the place to have the tantrum, and you bring the child to a place where they can have their meltdown or their tantrum. Now, sometimes you don't want to have the tantrum. We had a perfect situation in a classroom. So the class was called the NEST class, and it was for children with severe behavior problems who were 6, 7 years old. Across the hallway was a grade 1 classroom, and we had a little girl in that classroom who had a horrible family situation. I won't tell you all the details, but it was really, really, really sad. And she had monumental meltdowns. Monumental. And the NEST teacher heard those meltdowns. Now we eventually put the little girl into the NEST program. She was only there maybe 2 weeks. And the one of the staff in the program, who didn't quite get how much help this little girl needed, gave this little girl a consequence. And the next morning, and for some reason the little girl didn't do the consequence, and the next morning the person said, and again, trying to assert their alpha, trying to be the person in charge, trying to let this little girl know that we're the ones in charge. There was nothing wrong with what they did. They basically said to the little girl, 1 minute, you sit here for 1 minute, and then you can go and play with the toys. Well, this little girl was having none of this. I want to play with the toys. I want to play with the toys. Anyway, there was no meltdown, but the person who was insisting ended up leaving the classroom with the other children, and the teacher stayed. And she kept insisting, and said this little girl could not sit for 1 minute. I mean, it felt like 3 hours to her. I finally said to the teacher, come over here. I said, I think we're at the point right now that if you push her anymore, she's going to have a meltdown. Are you ready to live with the meltdown? And the teacher took one look at me and said, nope. I said, yes, you haven't had her long enough for her to feel safe with you having a meltdown. I said, I think you need to give her the toys. You should have seen that teacher's face. Really? I said, it's either that or a meltdown. So she just rolled her eyes, and then she walked over to the toys. She picked up the toys. She sat down, and this was a lovely young woman. She took the toys, she sat down, and she said to the little girl, I have decided that you may play with the toys now. I was blown away. I was blown away because she changed her mind, but she stayed alpha. I have decided. Not, okay, well, do whatever you want. Okay, have the toys. No, I have decided. Right now, I think it's a good idea for you to play with the toys. The little girl completely calmed down. And then we had to take her to the gym. She took our hands. She went to the gym. I mean, it was like magical, the change. Because and the teacher did the two pieces. One, we gave the child what she thought she needed, but in a way that we were still in charge. Sometimes a kid will say, I'm not doing this stupid thing. You know what? You don't have to do it right now. So I know it feels like we're giving in, but sometimes we have to change our mind. And we all know that. Sometimes we even made the wrong decision. Any of you as classroom teachers know sometimes you thought we're going to work for 20 minutes. And after 10 minutes, you realize, uh-oh, they're not working. And many of you will naturally spontaneously do this. Class, you know what? I've decided you've worked hard enough. We're going to take a little break. I basically call this staying in charge, even if you can't be in control. Because that's what the kids want to know. They don't want to know who's controlling us. They want to know who's in charge, who's calling the shots. And we can change our minds and still be the ones who call the shots. Some kids, sometimes you even need to say, you know what, it's better that you don't do your math. We had one little girl who was like that. The teacher basically said to her, you know what, honey, when it's math time, I think it's better if you don't do math. You go and do your language arts. And then I was the psychologist who was supposed to come in and observe her, and the teacher had already decided this. And I came in to observe her, and she said to the teacher, I want to do my mathematics because she didn't have to, right? So this is one of the things that we need to understand, because then all the rest of the children look at us. And and some people say, well, yeah, but if you say to that little girl, she doesn't have to do her math, what about the other kids? Then you just use your little alpha stance. The other kids goes, I don't feel like doing my, okay, miss. But if all the kids are saying they don't want to do their mathematics, you better say, you know what, right now I've decided this isn't such a good idea, right? So stay in charge even if you can't be in control. In this caring alpha role, we want to bring our children to right relationship. We need to be willing to make decisions that we believe are best for the student, even if they do get the students upset. But we want to become the one that the student or the child comes for guidance. We make it our responsibility to keep children out of trouble. If they can only sit for 3 minutes, we only read a story that's 2.5 minutes long. If they can only, we make sure that we make it easy for them to stay in good relationship with us. If we've lost it, we do apologize to the child. We do say, I wasn't happy about what I did. I'm going to do things differently here. Let me try again. And we work actively to create and preserve a sense of connection with each student. So one of the things that we need to remember, and this is the second kind of pillar that Dr. Neufeld talks about, the second part of the attachment dance, it's called bridging. And this is the last thing I'm going to say here, is that bridging means that we're going to put the emphasis on the next point of contact. And it's so interesting because we have hello rituals, but we don't actually have goodbye rituals. Although I've been in some wonderful K-5 classrooms and grade 1 classrooms where the teacher stands at the door at the end of the day. And again, some of you do it naturally, but some of it do it very consciously. At the end of the day, they say, as each child goes out, they say, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Oh, don't forget, we're going to do your favorite math thing tomorrow. Oh, we're going to do some coloring. Oh, we're going to do this. So they basically are saying our relationship is being bridged to the next day. Something to look forward to. In French, we say au revoir, see you again, rather than goodbye, which feels like so definitive. I have something special planned for tomorrow. Oh, I can hardly wait to see you. One of the wonderful bridging activities comes with the book, The Kissing Hand, and we talked a little about it last time. When parents have to leave a child, and in this particular one, it was a little raccoon, where after kissing Chester's palm, his mother says, whenever you feel lonely and need a little loving from home, just press your hand to your chest and think Mummy loves you. And Chester is reassured that his mom's love will be with him wherever he goes, even in kindergarten. And for some of our children, they need to hang on to their parents. So we have pictures, we have something that they can, a kiss is a lovely thing because it doesn't have problems with COVID, right? Just something that the child can hold on to. And some of you were asking, well, what do I do with a child who wants to hold on to me and can't come home with me or can't stay at school with me? Well, we might give them a little something. And again, I know you can't give a thing, but again, you might just do the same thing. You might draw a little heart on the child's hand and say, look at this and I'll be thinking of you. And I can hardly wait to see you tomorrow. That bridges to the next time. Um, with problem behavior, even more important that somebody in the school says to a child, and again, Lynn, I'm sure that you're very often that person who says, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. We're going to find a way to make it better for you tomorrow. It's okay. You can come back. Really, the message we want to give to our children, and this is what bridging does, is that no matter what they do or how they behave, adults will continue to care for them. Bridging gives the child hope. They need to hear from us. We'll be here tomorrow. We know we're going to be there tomorrow, but sometimes they need to actually hear it in our words. It was a tough day today, but I know it's going to be better tomorrow. I am looking forward to seeing you. That child now has hope that when he comes back, the people he can count on, that he can count on, will be there. So a little bit of sharing here, and again, we're a little bit close to the end of our time, and so, I just want you to notice some of the bridging behaviors, maybe practice a new bridging behavior, and then also notice how adults take the lead, become the guide. And now that you know about alpha children, does this help you understand a little bit about the children in your care? So I'm going to hang on. Oops, I need to do something else here, and I don't know how to do it. Ah. Okay, sorry guys, I'm going to, oops, I don't know how, oh, hang on, I don't know how to get back to my Zoom. All right, Sarah, I'm just trying to get back. I'll be there in a minute. Hang on, let me figure something out here.
Want to stop sharing?
That's what I'm trying to do, and I don't know how.
You don't have a little red.
Yeah, here we go. Yes, I got it
yes.
now. There we go. Phew. Thank you, Sarah, for stepping in. I appreciate your alpha instincts. Okay, so we just have a few minutes. I don't know if there are any questions at all, but I certainly would love to hear from Sarah and from Lynn and from Cynthia, just in terms of some of the things that I've said and how they relate maybe to.
Oh, big alpha complex here. I'd love to share my experience next week in the sharing time. And I have an intervention from a participant who said that in the Gayengea language, different words for older brother and younger sister. So that show in the language all the importance of the relation and then to be caring of the little one. And I just want to add that even her chief traditionally was the person who commit to answer the need of everybody else before is. So big alpha complex there too. But I'd like to hear maybe Lynn with her experience on that.
About the names of family members.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like I said, last time, I'm not proficient in our language, but I am aware that yes, for younger brother and sister and baby and older brother, even cousins,
Yeah.
and then when I was growing up, anyone who was my parents' age was an aunt or an uncle, even if you weren't related to them.
Yeah.
And so now with Ohorogu and the rites of passage for puberty rites of passage, they're encouraged to get an auntie or an uncle to be their support during this time and this transition in their life. And it doesn't have to be someone who's biologically related to them.
Yeah.
So, it's so important, the terms of kinship, because you know where your place is in family, you know where your place is in your clan, you know where your place is in your community, and even across the
Yeah.
Confederacy.
Yeah.
So, it's so important,
You
the
see, and
terms
again,
of kinship.
the wisdom, right? The wisdom. There are people in your life who are meant to take care of you,
Hmm.
and you are meant to allow them to take care of you. Like the
Yeah.
wisdom of yeah, it's amazing. In Hungarian, the same thing. In Hungarian, you never called any older person in your life was called aunt or uncle,
Hmm.
and it was an honorific, which again gave that nice sense of these are the people that will take care of you, and they didn't have to be blood relatives to be an aunt or an uncle. It was an older person who was
Hmm.
gonna, yeah.
Yeah. And then even when we look at creation, there's the kinship there.
Yeah.
Elder
Yeah.
brother, the sun, mother earth,
Oh
father
yes.
sky, so our three sisters, which is our foods, the kinship terms are there,
Yeah,
and so
the caring for, right?
yes, so even
Wow.
with that, when you have a kinship role with creation and mother earth, are you going to show disrespect? Are you going to be greedy and take more than you need? It's in our culture, and we're really, really struggling to get that back. I went to an awesome elders gathering and conference this past weekend. It was offered by Trent University, and there was elders there that spoke. It was mainly about prophecy and how to reverse prophecy or deal with prophecy, and it was just amazing
Wow.
what the
Wow.
elders had to share.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. So
so it's really, really, important. And I like that in one of the slides where it's the posture you take. So you can tell, when someone has a strong, I guess, alpha within themselves, a strong lead, how they carry themselves and how students respond to you. If you
Mhm.
come in a little bit, wishy-washy, or maybe I'm not going to say too kind, because kindness is kindness, but
Mm,
you can tell, because then the students know that you're not strong with setting the boundaries and the limitations and the saying no. I just found this really, really awesome. I said it's too bad we didn't have more
yeah.
participants, because there's a wealth of
Yeah.
information to help teachers and parents.
Well, that's why we're recording it, and certainly we haven't figured out exactly how we're going to use it again. But I mean, the beauty of this is once it's recorded, people can listen to it at will, and also people can have discussion groups about it. It doesn't. I
Right.
don't have to be there necessarily. I mean, you have other people that can. We're having a little alpha issue here, simply because Cynthia, I'm sorry, you weren't. We There was reasons why we had switched it to Monday, but we're actually going to go next Wednesday. So our sharing is going to be next Wednesday and Thursday. I thought I was going to be out of town, and so I think we're going to have to send out a new schedule to people because we've switched around dates a little bit. But we're going to keep it Wednesdays and Thursdays so that people can kind of work it into their schedule. I'm so sorry we didn't we didn't tell you. So it will be yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know that. So it's not Monday for the English, it's
No,
going to
it'll
be
be it'll.
Wednesday.
Is that okay, Lynn, for you?
Oh,
I'm
yes, of
sorry. Yeah.
course,
Okay. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
something
Good.
came up for Monday and I'm like, no, I'm going to
Yeah.
miss
No, 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 no,
it.
no.
Okay.
Great, great. So it'll be Wednesday. No, because I know that it's easier for people when it's a regular day. But
Okay.
Valerie and I were planning this like last October or November. Like we didn't know what was going to happen,
Mhm,
and I
mhm.
thought, who knows? Anyway, I thought I was going to be out of town.
Yeah.
I see Noma says this workshop should be shared with all the teaching staff. I think this is something that again, we'll talk with FNEC and with Sarah and with Cynthia and with whoever is interested. But we did them in 1 hour chunks. We tried to make it. I know there's some repetition, but because the repetition was meant to be there, that people could listen to one of them without, and be able to just it stands on its own. So there's enough there to kind of keep people, engaged. And I think we see this as kind of a professional development opportunity. Possibly, I know that we're looking at I know that Valerie asked for funds. Maybe we could develop some workbooks or, some guides for people, to discussion guides or questions they could have. But yeah, we're very open to this because I know for myself, it just made a huge difference in my life as a mother, in every role that I do, just knowing this alpha, just knowing about alpha. I mean, I have my children are adults now, but in the olden days, I would have told them that I'm freaking out. Now, when my kids call me, and my son has two adolescent stepdaughters, 14 and 15. You can imagine, some of the challenges we have, right?
Mhm.
But when they call me and say, when he calls me and says, Mom, what should we do right now? I go, well, that's very interesting. Let me just think for a moment, but oh yeah, this is what I think, or why don't you try this, or but I, even if I say I'm not sure quite, I'll get back to you. But I always sound like I'm going to be very confident. I think about what the heck am I going to do for a 14-year-old girl, right? Because, but and that's what they need. I have another one of my daughter's friends, again, another 14-year-old girl, and I mean, I can't give her answers, but I say to her, call me, because if the mom is confident, the daughter will do better. So all I can do is help the mom stay confident. And even though things are not going very well, I always am able to say, let your daughter know that you care about her. Let know that there's nothing she can do that will break the relationship. You're going to be there for her. And that the mom knows she can't do anything else, but she's happy to have that guidance. So yeah, this has made a huge difference in my life. And it's not a big change. And again, Sarah, I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say next time because yeah.
Yep. And also, I just want to add that Valerie start with me, and then after we start with two teacher, and those two teacher, and it grows and it grows. So if you can just invite a friend, a colleagues, to assist, and maybe it'll change a lot. And just one person who understand the power of attachment, it's something that can affect a lot of our children in the class. So well, it's a process, and just like you, Eva, I'm so blessed that I get to learn this at my age, and then I wish I learned it sooner. But
Yeah.
well, it's never too late. It's lifelong learning.
Yes, it's never too late. No, it isn't. It isn't. And the other thing, which, because again, the person who created this, Dr. Neufeld, he's not, he doesn't have the answer to everything, but it pulled together a lot of things that I knew. But the most important thing was I already knew people who were doing this. I would see someone like Lynn interacting with a student and I would go, wow, but he explains why what Lynn does works. And Lynn can't give us a recipe, right? Because there are some days when you just take this kid and just take care of him and you have no agenda. Other days he walks into the room and you say, "Oh yeah, today's the day I'm going to do such and such with him," right? Like if someone tried to be you, Lynn, they wouldn't be able to be you because they don't have your alpha instincts, right? They don't
Yeah.
have your, and I'm sure there were times when you made mistakes and you learned, no, I can't push this,
Yeah.
right? Oh, today's the day when I can push it, right?
It's a real balancing act, and it all depends on the circumstance, the situation, the issue that we're dealing with.
Yeah,
And it's just really like that one slide there where you're saying others are watching. If you try to, when a student is close to that meltdown and you're going to try and enforce your will on them, you lost and they're going to lose.
yeah,
It's just about, trying to be that soft, kind face that, because sometimes I get called to a classroom where, they're just refusing. They don't want to leave, and I just have to go there. And I'm not there as a threat,
no,
here to
no,
support you, to
yeah,
get you back in balance, to root you back. And what is it that you need? And sometimes they don't know what they need.
no,
Like you said, there's things going on, they're frustrated, overwhelmed, and they don't have the words. So what they're going to do is punch, the next person that they think, is being mean to them, because there's just so much inside. And in fact, I'm dealing with a little guy right now who's in that situation,
yeah,
where he's been okay, but there's a change at home, and then how the mother reacts to change. Anyways,
yeah,
so now it's in 2 days, there's been 3 incidences with this
yeah.
little guy in grade 2.
Yeah, because the world, things are just too much for him.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
for sure.
yeah. But
Yeah,
he's very fortunate that he also has an understanding teacher,
yeah,
and she already
yeah.
had contact because the mother and father weren't together, but the father already gave the feedback, of what's going
Let
on
her
in
know
his
what's
life.
going on.
So
Yeah,
when we know that, you approach things differently,
for
but
sure.
yet you have to have the firmness. So as they
Oh yeah,
say,
you,
the
you can't let him do
real
whatever he
balance
wants.
in that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a real balance in that.
Yeah, but it's amazing, when kids know that we're okay. I remember one little boy was having a meltdown, and the grade ones came out into the hallway, and a couple of them went up to the principal, and they said to him, why is this little boy having? And the principal just said, he's having a really hard time today. He's just having a hard time, because the teachers were like, but no, the principal was very calm about it, very calm. He's having a hard time. It's okay, and the kids were perfectly okay. They just needed to know that the adult uh, saw it and was okay with it and was in charge of it. Anyway, we could go on for a much longer time, but I know we're at the end
Well,
of our time. So
yeah, I guess
thank you so much.
we'll save it
And
for the sharing part next
yes,
Wednesday.
so next week on Wednesday, and we will try and get an email out to everyone with the new schedule. I'll talk to Valerie about that and we'll get the new schedule, but it'll be next week on Wednesday, and please come. Yeah, thank you so much.